Question 1. Governance review demonstrates that the head of the computer science department at Rafidain University College has been approached by a prominent alumnus who has pledged a substantial donation to the department, contingent upon the admission of his nephew, who is currently undergoing the application process. The nephew's academic record, while satisfactory, is not exceptionally strong and falls below the typical threshold for direct admission into the program. The head of department is aware of the potential benefits the donation could bring to the department's research and resources. What is the most ethically and professionally responsible course of action for the head of department? Option A. Expedite the admission of the nephew to secure the donation, and then address any potential academic concerns with the student once admitted. Option B. Inform the alumnus that the admission decision is solely based on academic merit, and that the donation cannot be directly linked to the admission outcome, while still encouraging him to consider donating to the department. Option C. Evaluate the nephew's application strictly based on the established academic criteria and departmental admission policies, independent of the pledged donation, and communicate the decision transparently to the alumnus. Option D. Propose a separate scholarship fund for academically deserving students, funded by the alumnus, which would be awarded independently of the nephew's admission status. Correct answer is C. Evaluate the nephew's application strictly based on the established academic criteria and departmental admission policies, independent of the pledged donation, and communicate the decision transparently to the alumnus. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the immediate financial pressures of a university department and the long-term ethical obligations of academic integrity and fair admission practices. The department head is faced with a situation where a potential significant donation is contingent on a favorable admission decision for a student who may not meet the standard academic criteria. This requires careful judgment to balance institutional needs with ethical responsibilities. The correct approach involves prioritizing adherence to Rafidain University College's established admission policies and ethical guidelines. This means evaluating the student's application solely on its academic merits, irrespective of the potential donation. This approach is ethically sound because it upholds fairness, transparency, and the principle of meritocracy, which are fundamental to academic institutions. It aligns with the implicit ethical duty to maintain the academic standards and reputation of the college. Furthermore, it avoids any appearance of impropriety or undue influence, which could jeopardize the integrity of the admission process and the college's standing. An incorrect approach would be to allow the potential donation to influence the admission decision. This would constitute a serious ethical failure, as it prioritizes financial gain over academic integrity and fair treatment of all applicants. Such an action would violate the principle of impartiality and could lead to the admission of unqualified students, thereby undermining the educational quality of the college. It also creates a precedent for future decisions being influenced by financial considerations, eroding trust in the institution. Another incorrect approach would be to delay the admission decision indefinitely while attempting to negotiate the donation separately from the student's application. This is ethically problematic because it creates ambiguity and can be perceived as a form of coercion or manipulation. It also fails to address the core issue of the student's academic qualifications in a timely and transparent manner, potentially disadvantaging other applicants. A third incorrect approach would be to admit the student without full disclosure of the donation's influence to the admissions committee. This is a breach of transparency and honesty. Even if the student is academically borderline, the undisclosed influence of the donation creates a conflict of interest and undermines the integrity of the committee's decision-making process. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding and application of the institution's admission policies, ethical codes of conduct, and any relevant regulatory guidelines. Professionals should first identify any potential conflicts of interest. They should then consult relevant policies and seek guidance from appropriate authorities within the institution, such as the Ethics Committee or senior administration. If the situation is complex or unclear, the ultimate decision must be based on objective criteria and ethical principles, ensuring fairness, transparency, and the preservation of the institution's integrity. Question 2. Risk assessment procedures indicate that an applicant for the Rafidain University College entrance exam may have misrepresented their extracurricular involvement. While reviewing their application, an admissions officer notices a discrepancy between the stated activities and some publicly available social media posts that suggest a different level of engagement. The admissions officer is considering accessing the applicant's private social media messages to verify the extent of their involvement. Option A. Dismiss the applicant's application immediately based on the perceived discrepancy observed in public social media posts. Option B. Seek explicit consent from the applicant to review specific, relevant social media content that pertains to their stated extracurricular activities. Option C. Access the applicant's private social media messages without their knowledge to confirm the accuracy of their application. Option D. Ignore the discrepancy and proceed with the application review based solely on the submitted documents. The correct answer is B. Seek explicit consent from the applicant to review specific, relevant social media content that pertains to their stated extracurricular activities. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the ethical obligation to protect sensitive personal data. The college entrance exam context implies a need for fairness and integrity in the admissions process, but also a responsibility to handle applicant information with care. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any information accessed is relevant to the assessment and that privacy is not unduly compromised. The correct approach involves seeking explicit consent from the applicant for any additional information that might be relevant to their admission, particularly if it pertains to personal circumstances that could impact their academic performance or suitability for the program. This aligns with the ethical principles of transparency and respect for individual autonomy, and implicitly with the spirit of data protection guidelines that would govern educational institutions, even if specific Rafidain University College regulations are not detailed here. The core principle is that individuals should be informed and agree to how their data is used. An incorrect approach would be to access the applicant's social media profiles without their knowledge or consent, even if the intention is to gain a more complete picture of their character. This constitutes a breach of privacy and a violation of trust. Such an action could also lead to misinterpretations or biased judgments based on information that is not officially verified or directly relevant to academic merit. Furthermore, it bypasses established channels for gathering information, undermining the integrity of the admissions process. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the applicant solely based on assumptions made from publicly available, unverified information found online. This is unprofessional because it relies on speculation rather than objective assessment criteria. It fails to provide the applicant with an opportunity to explain or contextualize any information that might be perceived negatively, and it deviates from the established admissions criteria of the college. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the college's admissions policy and any relevant ethical codes or data handling guidelines. When faced with a need for additional information, the first step should be to consider if this information is strictly necessary for the assessment, and if it can be obtained through official, consented channels. If external information is deemed potentially relevant, the professional should explore obtaining consent from the applicant to access specific, relevant information, or request the applicant to provide it directly. If consent cannot be obtained or the information is not provided, the decision should be made based on the information that has been legitimately and ethically acquired, without resorting to unauthorized data gathering or speculative judgments. Question 3. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential discrepancy in an applicant's submitted academic records for the Rafidain University College entrance exam, raising concerns about academic integrity. The admissions committee needs to verify this information, but also must adhere to the college's strict data privacy policies regarding applicant information. The committee is considering several ways to proceed. Option A. Disregard the discrepancy as a minor issue and proceed with the applicant's admission based on the initial submission, assuming it was an unintentional error. Option B. Inform the applicant of the specific concerns regarding their academic records and request their explicit written consent to investigate further, including the potential review of relevant personal information if deemed necessary by the investigation team. Option C. Share the suspicion of academic misconduct with other applicants and faculty members to gather informal opinions and potential leads. Option D. Immediately access and review the applicant's publicly available social media profiles for any corroborating or contradictory information related to their academic achievements. Correct answer is D. Immediately access and review the applicant's publicly available social media profiles for any corroborating or contradictory information related to their academic achievements. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the ethical obligation to protect sensitive personal data. The college entrance exam regulations, while not explicitly detailed here, would inherently emphasize fairness, integrity, and the responsible handling of applicant information. The core conflict lies between the urgency of identifying potential academic misconduct and the privacy rights of the applicant. The correct approach involves a measured and systematic process that prioritizes data protection while still allowing for a thorough investigation. This approach aligns with general ethical principles of fairness and due process, and would be supported by any regulatory framework governing educational institutions, which typically mandate confidentiality and proper handling of personal information. Specifically, it involves seeking consent or relying on established protocols for data access in such circumstances, ensuring transparency and limiting access to only those directly involved in the investigation. An incorrect approach would be to immediately access and review the applicant's personal social media content without any justification or consent. This would violate privacy rights and potentially breach data protection regulations, which are fundamental to maintaining trust and legal compliance in any institution. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the concern outright without any investigation, which could compromise the integrity of the entrance exam process if the suspicion is valid. A third incorrect approach would be to share the suspicion with unauthorized personnel, which constitutes a breach of confidentiality and could unfairly damage the applicant's reputation. Professionals should approach such situations by first identifying the ethical and regulatory obligations. This involves understanding data privacy laws, institutional policies, and codes of conduct. The next step is to assess the credibility of the concern and the potential impact of both action and inaction. A structured investigation involving appropriate authorities and respecting the rights of the individual is crucial. Transparency and documentation throughout the process are also vital for accountability. Question 4. Investigation of a candidate during the Rafidain University College entrance examination who appears to be subtly glancing at another candidate's answer sheet and then makes eye contact with the invigilator, seemingly seeking confirmation or a signal. Option A. Offer the candidate a brief, private word outside the hall to understand their situation, suggesting they focus on their own work without further intervention. Option B. Discreetly approach the candidate, issue a verbal warning about maintaining focus on their own paper, and continue to monitor their behavior closely throughout the remainder of the examination. Option C. Immediately confiscate the candidate's examination paper and escort them out of the examination hall, reporting the incident to the examination board. Option D. Signal back to the candidate with a nod, indicating that their behavior is noted but not to be concerned about, and then return to a different part of the hall. The correct answer is B. Discreetly approach the candidate, issue a verbal warning about maintaining focus on their own paper, and continue to monitor their behavior closely throughout the remainder of the examination. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the integrity of the examination process. The core ethical dilemma lies in balancing fairness to all candidates with the obligation to uphold academic standards. The entrance exam at Rafidain University College is designed to assess a candidate's foundational knowledge and aptitude, and any deviation from this objective compromises the validity of the assessment. The pressure to admit students, especially in competitive environments, can create an incentive to overlook ethical breaches, making a clear understanding of professional conduct paramount. The correct approach involves strictly adhering to the Rafidain University College's examination regulations and ethical guidelines. This means refusing to provide any unauthorized assistance, even if it appears minor or well-intentioned. The justification for this lies in the principle of academic integrity, which is fundamental to the credibility of any educational institution. Providing assistance would be a direct violation of the rules governing the entrance exam, potentially leading to unfair advantages for one candidate over others, and undermining the merit-based selection process. Furthermore, it sets a dangerous precedent and erodes trust in the examination system. An incorrect approach would be to offer subtle hints or direct answers. This is ethically unsound because it directly contravenes the spirit and letter of examination regulations, which mandate a fair and unbiased assessment. Such actions would constitute academic dishonesty, violating the trust placed in the invigilator by the college and the other candidates. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the situation, hoping it resolves itself. This is a failure of professional duty. The invigilator has a responsibility to ensure the integrity of the examination, and inaction in the face of a potential breach is a dereliction of that duty, allowing academic misconduct to occur unchecked. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the examination rules and ethical codes of conduct. When faced with a potential breach, the professional should first assess the situation objectively. If a violation is suspected or confirmed, the immediate and appropriate action, as dictated by the regulations, should be taken. This typically involves discreetly addressing the candidate and, if necessary, reporting the incident to the appropriate examination authorities for further investigation and action, ensuring that the process remains fair and transparent for all. Question 5. Risk assessment procedures indicate that during the Rafidain University College entrance exam, a student appears visibly distressed and discreetly signals to you, a proctor, indicating they need help with a question. You are aware that providing any form of assistance or hint would violate the examination's integrity guidelines. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Politely and firmly decline the student's request for assistance, explaining that no help can be provided during the exam, and continue to monitor the examination environment. Option B. Provide the student with a subtle hint to help them answer the question, believing it is more important to alleviate their distress. Option C. Immediately stop the exam and report the student to the examination committee for seeking assistance. Option D. Ignore the student's signal and continue with your duties as if nothing happened. The correct answer is A. Politely and firmly decline the student's request for assistance, explaining that no help can be provided during the exam, and continue to monitor the examination environment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the integrity of the entrance examination process. The college entrance exam is designed to be a fair and objective measure of a candidate's aptitude and knowledge. Introducing external assistance, even with good intentions, compromises this fairness and undermines the validity of the assessment. The professional must navigate this situation by upholding ethical principles of honesty, integrity, and fairness, while also considering the well-being and potential future of the student. The correct approach involves politely but firmly declining the student's request for direct assistance during the exam. This upholds the integrity of the Rafidain University College entrance exam by ensuring all candidates are assessed on their own merit, as mandated by the examination's regulatory framework, which implicitly requires a level playing field. Ethically, this aligns with principles of fairness and honesty, preventing any form of academic misconduct or unfair advantage. The professional's duty is to facilitate a fair examination environment, not to compromise it. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with answers or hints. This directly violates the core principles of fair assessment and academic integrity. It constitutes a breach of trust and professional conduct, as it allows one candidate to gain an unfair advantage over others. Such an action would undermine the credibility of the Rafidain University College entrance exam and could lead to the admission of unqualified students, thereby damaging the reputation of the institution. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request and continue with the exam without any acknowledgement. While this might seem like a neutral stance, it fails to address the ethical dilemma presented. It could be interpreted as tacit approval or a lack of awareness of professional responsibilities. A professional is expected to actively manage the examination environment and address potential breaches of conduct or requests that compromise fairness. A third incorrect approach would be to report the student to the examination authorities for merely asking for help, without first attempting to de-escalate the situation or clarify the nature of the request. While vigilance is important, an immediate escalation without a professional attempt to manage the situation could be seen as overly punitive and lacking in judgment, especially if the student's intent was not malicious, but rather a moment of panic or misunderstanding. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Recognizing the ethical conflict. 2. Prioritizing the integrity of the examination and fairness to all candidates. 3. Communicating clearly and professionally with the student, explaining the boundaries of acceptable conduct during the exam. 4. Taking appropriate action to ensure the exam proceeds fairly, which may involve discreet observation or, if necessary, reporting after the exam if the student persists or attempts to cheat. Question 6. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a prospective student, while waiting to begin their Rafidain University College entrance examination, approaches you, a proctor, and expresses extreme anxiety, stating they really need this to go well, and asks if you can just give them a little hint on the first question to get them started. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Offer a subtle hint on the first question to alleviate the student's anxiety and help them begin, believing that a small amount of assistance will not significantly impact the overall assessment. Option B. Politely but firmly decline to provide any assistance or hints, reminding the student that the examination must be completed independently according to the college's regulations, and advise them to focus on the questions presented. Option C. Suggest to the student that they can ask the examination supervisor for clarification on the instructions if they are unsure about how to proceed. Option D. Immediately escort the student out of the examination hall and report them for attempted misconduct without any further interaction. The correct answer is B. Politely but firmly decline to provide any assistance or hints, reminding the student that the examination must be completed independently according to the college's regulations, and advise them to focus on the questions presented. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the integrity of the entrance examination process. The core ethical dilemma lies in balancing empathy for a struggling applicant with the obligation to uphold fair and equitable assessment standards, as mandated by Rafidain University College's entrance examination regulations. The pressure to admit students, coupled with the desire to be helpful, can cloud judgment. The correct approach involves a commitment to the established examination protocols and a refusal to compromise the integrity of the assessment. This upholds the principle of fairness to all applicants, ensuring that admission is based on merit and demonstrated knowledge, not on unauthorized assistance. Rafidain University College's entrance examination guidelines implicitly require all candidates to complete the assessment independently. Providing any form of unauthorized aid, even if seemingly minor, directly violates these implicit requirements and undermines the validity of the examination results. It also sets a dangerous precedent for future academic endeavors. An incorrect approach of providing hints or direct answers to the student fails to adhere to the examination's integrity. This action constitutes a breach of academic honesty and fairness, as it gives the student an unfair advantage over other candidates who are undertaking the examination under the stipulated conditions. Such an action would be a direct contravention of the principles of equitable assessment that underpin any university entrance examination. Another incorrect approach of reporting the student to the examination authorities without first attempting to de-escalate or clarify the situation might be seen as overly punitive and lacking in professional discretion. While reporting misconduct is a necessary step, the immediate escalation without any attempt at understanding or guidance could be perceived as an overreaction, especially if the student's intent was not malicious, but rather a manifestation of anxiety or misunderstanding of the rules. However, the primary ethical failure here is still the potential compromise of the exam's integrity if any form of assistance were considered. The most professionally sound decision-making process in such situations involves a clear understanding and strict adherence to the examination's rules and regulations. Professionals must prioritize the integrity of the assessment process above all else. This involves maintaining a professional distance, clearly communicating the rules to the applicant, and refusing any requests that would compromise fairness. If a student persists in seeking unauthorized assistance or exhibits clear attempts at cheating, the appropriate action is to follow the established procedures for reporting such incidents to the examination supervisors or relevant authorities, ensuring that the process is documented and handled impartially. Question 7. When evaluating the integrity of the Rafidain University College entrance exam, a fellow candidate discreetly signals to you, asking for help with a question they are struggling with. You are confident in your answer to that specific question. What is the most ethically sound and procedurally correct course of action? Option A. Politely and firmly decline to provide any assistance and continue with your own examination, while remaining vigilant for any further irregularities. Option B. Stop the examination and loudly accuse the candidate of attempting to cheat in front of everyone. Option C. Discreetly provide the requested assistance to your fellow candidate to help them pass the exam. Option D. Signal back to the candidate that you are also unsure of the answer, even if you are not, to avoid conflict. The correct answer is A. Politely and firmly decline to provide any assistance and continue with your own examination while remaining vigilant for any further irregularities. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the integrity of the examination process. Pressure to perform well in a university entrance exam can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to uphold academic honesty and ensure a fair evaluation for all candidates. The correct approach involves prioritizing academic integrity and adhering strictly to the examination rules. This means refusing to engage in any form of cheating or providing assistance that could be construed as such. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principles of honesty and fairness, which are paramount in any educational setting, including entrance examinations. Specifically, Rafidain University College's entrance exam regulations, like those of most reputable institutions, would implicitly or explicitly prohibit any form of academic dishonesty, including aiding another student in a way that compromises the exam's validity. Upholding these regulations ensures that the examination accurately reflects each student's knowledge and abilities, maintaining the credibility of the college's admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to provide the requested assistance. This action directly violates the principles of academic integrity and the explicit or implicit rules of the Rafidain University College entrance exam. Such behavior undermines the fairness of the examination, giving an unfair advantage to one student over others who have prepared diligently and are adhering to the rules. It also compromises the validity of the exam results and the college's admission standards. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the request and simply proceed with the exam without any acknowledgement or response. While this avoids direct participation in cheating, it fails to address the ethical breach presented by the peer. A responsible candidate would recognize the situation and, at a minimum, decline to participate in any unethical act, and ideally, report the incident to the invigilator to uphold the integrity of the examination environment. A professional decision-making process in such a situation involves 1. Recognizing the ethical dilemma. Identify the conflict between peer pressure/friendship and academic integrity. 2. Consulting relevant rules. Recall or be aware of the Rafidain University College entrance exam regulations regarding academic honesty. 3. Prioritizing ethical principles. Affirm the importance of honesty, fairness, and integrity. 4. Taking decisive action. Clearly and politely refuse to engage in any unethical behavior. 5. Reporting if necessary. Consider reporting the incident to the appropriate authority, invigilator, to ensure a fair examination environment for all. Question 8. Risk assessment procedures indicate that during the Rafidain University College entrance exam, a proctor observes a candidate exhibiting signs of distress and repeatedly looking at their neighbor's answer sheet. The candidate then discreetly signals to the proctor, appearing to ask for help with a specific question. What is the most appropriate course of action for the proctor to take? Option A. Politely but firmly inform the candidate that no assistance can be provided and that they must complete the exam independently, while also discreetly observing the candidate for further irregularities. Option B. Offer subtle hints or guidance to the candidate to help them arrive at the correct answer, believing that a little help will not significantly impact the overall fairness of the exam. Option C. Ignore the candidate's signal and continue to monitor the room generally, hoping the situation resolves itself without intervention. Option D. Immediately stop the candidate from continuing the exam and escort them out of the examination hall, assuming a clear attempt at cheating. The correct answer is A. Politely but firmly inform the candidate that no assistance can be provided and that they must complete the exam independently, while also discreetly observing the candidate for further irregularities. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the academic integrity principles upheld by Rafidain University College. Pressure to perform well on entrance exams can lead students to seek shortcuts, while the institution has a duty to ensure a fair and merit-based selection process. The core ethical dilemma lies in balancing empathy for a struggling student with the obligation to maintain the integrity of the examination process. The correct approach involves upholding academic integrity by refusing to provide direct answers or assistance that would compromise the fairness of the exam. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principles of honesty and fairness expected of all individuals associated with the university, including proctors and invigilators. Specifically, the guidelines for Rafidain University College entrance exam would mandate that all candidates are assessed on their own knowledge and abilities. Providing answers would violate this principle and undermine the validity of the entrance examination as a measure of a candidate's suitability for admission. An incorrect approach of providing hints or subtly guiding the student towards the correct answer is also a violation of academic integrity. While seemingly less direct than giving answers, it still constitutes unfair assistance and compromises the principle of equal opportunity for all candidates. This action would be considered a breach of the examination regulations, which are designed to ensure a level playing field. Another incorrect approach, that of reporting the student immediately without any attempt to understand the situation or offer general clarification, might be overly punitive and lack professional discretion. While the student's behavior is inappropriate, a proctor's role often involves a degree of judgment. However, in the context of an entrance exam, primary concern remains the integrity of the process. Ignoring the situation entirely is also an incorrect approach, as it fails to address a clear breach of examination rules and allows unfair advantage to persist. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the examination rules and ethical guidelines. When faced with a potential breach, the professional should first assess the situation objectively. If a violation is confirmed, the immediate priority is to uphold the integrity of the examination. This typically involves a direct but professional refusal to provide unauthorized assistance, followed by appropriate reporting procedures, as outlined by the Rafidain University College entrance exam regulations. The focus should always be on maintaining fairness and the credibility of the assessment process. Question 9. Analysis of a situation where a prospective student, who is a distant acquaintance, approaches you a week before the Rafidain University College entrance exam and expresses extreme anxiety about their preparation. They hint strongly that they would be willing to offer a significant personal favor in the future if you could provide them with some of the actual exam questions or key topics that are likely to appear. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Politely but firmly refuse to provide any exam-related information and advise the student to focus on utilizing the official study materials and any preparatory workshops offered by the college. Option B. Suggest that the student find a tutor who might have access to past exam papers or leaked information. Option C. Agree to provide the student with a list of likely exam topics in exchange for their promise of a future personal favor. Option D. Provide the student with a few sample questions that are representative of the exam's difficulty and style, assuring them it's for practice only. The correct answer is A. Politely but firmly refuse to provide any exam-related information and advise the student to focus on utilizing the official study materials and any preparatory workshops offered by the college. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the integrity of the examination process. The pressure to perform well on a university entrance exam can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to uphold academic honesty and the principles of fair assessment. The correct approach involves refusing to provide the answers and instead advising the student on legitimate study resources and preparation methods. This aligns with the ethical duty of integrity and fairness expected of individuals involved in educational processes. Specifically, it upholds the principle of academic honesty by not facilitating cheating, which would undermine the validity of the Rafidain University College entrance exam. Furthermore, it demonstrates professional responsibility by guiding the student towards ethical means of achieving their academic goals. Providing the student with the exam answers is an ethical failure because it directly violates the principles of academic integrity and fairness. This action would constitute aiding and abetting academic dishonesty, compromising the integrity of the entrance examination and the admission process of Rafidain University College. It also breaches the trust placed in individuals to uphold the standards of educational institutions. Offering to help the student cheat in exchange for a future favor is also an ethical failure. This introduces a quid pro quo element that corrupts the academic process and demonstrates a severe lack of integrity. It prioritizes personal gain over professional ethics and the fairness of the examination. This approach not only facilitates cheating, but also establishes an unethical precedent for future interactions. Suggesting the student seek help from a tutor who has access to the exam questions is another ethical failure. While it attempts to distance oneself from direct provision of answers, it still involves directing the student towards an unethical source and indirectly facilitating academic dishonesty. This approach fails to uphold the responsibility to ensure that all students are assessed fairly and on their own merits. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear adherence to ethical codes and institutional policies. Professionals should first identify the ethical conflict. Then they should consider their professional obligations, which in this context include upholding academic integrity and fairness. The next step is to evaluate potential courses of action against these ethical principles and relevant regulations. The chosen action should be one that promotes honesty, fairness, and the long-term credibility of the educational institution. If unsure, seeking guidance from a supervisor or relevant authority within Rafidain University College is a prudent step. Question 10. The monitoring system demonstrates an unusual pattern in the responses of a small group of candidates during the Rafidain University College entrance examination, suggesting a potential, albeit unconfirmed, breach of examination security. As a proctor, you have observed this anomaly firsthand. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action to take immediately? Option A. Report the observed anomaly and your concerns immediately to the designated Examination Oversight Committee or Academic Integrity Board as per university regulations. Option B. Discuss your observations with trusted colleagues to gauge their opinions on how to proceed without formally reporting it yet. Option C. Discreetly adjust the observed candidate's scores to neutralize any potential unfair advantage before submitting the final results. Option D. Ignore the anomaly, assuming it is a minor statistical fluctuation, and proceed with the examination as planned. The correct answer is C. Discreetly adjust the observed candidate's scores to neutralize any potential unfair advantage before submitting the final results. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it involves a conflict between the immediate desire to secure a competitive advantage and the fundamental ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity and fairness in the admissions process. The pressure to admit high-achieving students can be significant, but compromising the integrity of the entrance exam process undermines the credibility of Rafidain University College and the value of its degrees. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation, ensuring that all decisions are aligned with established ethical principles and the specific regulations governing university admissions. The correct approach involves immediately reporting the observed anomaly to the appropriate Examination Oversight Committee or Academic Integrity Board as per Rafidain University College's internal regulations on examination security and academic misconduct. This action upholds the principle of fairness by ensuring that any potential breach of exam integrity is investigated impartially and that all candidates are assessed based on their genuine merit. This aligns with the ethical duty of professionals in academic institutions to safeguard the integrity of educational processes and to act with honesty and transparency. An incorrect approach of ignoring the anomaly and proceeding with admissions based on the potentially compromised scores would be a severe ethical and regulatory failure. It would violate the principle of fairness by allowing candidates who may have benefited from an unfair advantage to be admitted over more deserving candidates. This also constitutes a failure to uphold the duty of care to the institution and its stakeholders, as it risks devaluing the academic standards of the college. Another incorrect approach of attempting to discreetly correct the scores without proper investigation or documentation would also be a significant ethical breach. This action bypasses established procedures for handling exam irregularities, lacks transparency, and could be construed as an attempt to manipulate results, thereby undermining trust and accountability. It fails to address the root cause of the anomaly and could lead to further complications if discovered. A further incorrect approach of discussing the anomaly with other faculty members without following official reporting channels, even with good intentions, could lead to the spread of unsubstantiated information and create an environment of suspicion. While collegial discussion is valuable, it must be channeled through the designated reporting mechanisms to ensure a formal, documented, and fair investigation. This approach fails to adhere to the procedural requirements for handling academic integrity issues. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's policies on academic integrity and examination conduct. When an anomaly is detected, the immediate step should be to document the observation accurately and report it through the designated channels without delay. This ensures that the issue is handled by the appropriate authorities who can conduct a thorough and impartial investigation. Professionals should prioritize transparency, fairness, and adherence to established procedures over any perceived pressure for expediency or to achieve specific outcomes. Question 11. The risk matrix shows a high probability of a security lapse in the examination hall. While reviewing pre-exam materials, a student discovers a document containing questions and answers for the Rafidain University College entrance exam. The student understands that possessing and using this information would constitute a severe breach of academic integrity. What is the most ethical and professionally responsible course of action for the student? Option A. Immediately and discreetly inform the examination proctor or supervisor about the discovery of the document. Option B. Share the document with a few trusted friends who are also taking the exam to help them prepare. Option C. Proceed with the exam, attempting to answer the questions based on the discovered information without being noticed. Option D. Keep the document and use it to study further, hoping to gain an advantage without anyone knowing. The correct answer is A. Immediately and discreetly inform the examination proctor or supervisor about the discovery of the document. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for accurate information with the ethical obligation to maintain confidentiality and avoid conflicts of interest. The student is in a position of trust, and any action that could be perceived as leveraging that position for personal gain or to unfairly disadvantage others is problematic. The core of the dilemma lies in the potential for the student to gain an unfair advantage in the entrance exam by possessing pre-exam information, which undermines the principles of fairness and academic integrity. The correct approach involves recognizing the ethical breach and immediately reporting the situation to the appropriate authority without attempting to use the information. This upholds the principles of academic integrity, fairness to all candidates, and the integrity of the Rafidain University College entrance examination process. Reporting the incident demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct and ensures that the examination remains a true measure of candidates' knowledge and abilities, free from undue influence or unfair advantage. This aligns with the general ethical guidelines expected of individuals involved in academic and professional settings, emphasizing honesty and transparency. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the information and proceed with the exam as if nothing happened. This fails to address a potential integrity issue and allows for the possibility of an unfair advantage, even if unintentional. It also misses an opportunity to uphold ethical standards and protect the fairness of the examination. Another incorrect approach would be to subtly use the information during the exam. This is a direct violation of academic integrity and constitutes cheating. It not only provides an unfair advantage, but also undermines the credibility of the examination and the student's own achievements. It is a breach of trust and a serious ethical failure. A further incorrect approach would be to discuss the information with other students. This expands the potential for unfair advantage to multiple individuals, further compromising the integrity of the exam and creating a situation of widespread academic dishonesty. It also risks implicating others who may not have been aware of the information's origin or implications. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of ethical principles, such as honesty, fairness, and integrity. When faced with a potential ethical dilemma, a professional should 1. Identify the ethical issue. 2. Consider the relevant rules, regulations, and ethical codes, in this case, the guidelines for the Rafidain University College entrance exam. 3. Evaluate the potential consequences of different courses of action. 4. Choose the course of action that best upholds ethical principles and minimizes harm. 5. Report the situation to the appropriate authority if necessary. In this scenario, the immediate reporting of the discovered information to the examination proctor or administrator is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible action. Question 12. Research into the upcoming Rafidain University College entrance exam has revealed that a student has obtained a copy of a previous year's exam paper and is considering sharing specific questions with a friend who is also preparing for the exam, believing this will give their friend an unfair advantage. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action for the student? Option A. Share selected questions from the previous year's exam paper with a friend, rationalizing that it is from a past exam and not the current one. Option B. Destroy the previous year's exam paper to prevent any temptation or possibility of misuse. Option C. Immediately report the possession of the previous year's exam paper and the intention to share it to the exam administrators without sharing any content. Option D. Advise the friend to study independently and refrain from sharing any exam-related materials, while keeping the obtained paper for personal review. The correct answer is C. Immediately report the possession of the previous year's exam paper and the intention to share it to the exam administrators without sharing any content. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the ethical obligation to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a university entrance exam, especially one as crucial as the Rafidain University College entrance exam, can lead individuals to consider shortcuts. The core of the challenge lies in navigating this pressure while adhering to the strict regulatory framework governing the exam, which prioritizes fairness, honesty, and equal opportunity for all candidates. The correct approach involves recognizing the ethical implications of the situation and choosing to act with integrity, even when faced with a temptation to gain an unfair advantage. This aligns with the fundamental principles of academic ethics and the specific guidelines of the Rafidain University College entrance exam, which implicitly or explicitly prohibit any form of cheating or academic dishonesty. Upholding these standards ensures the validity of the examination process and maintains the credibility of the institution. An incorrect approach that involves sharing exam content before the official administration would be a direct violation of the exam's security protocols and the principles of fair play. This action undermines the integrity of the entire examination system and could lead to severe penalties for both the individual involved and potentially the institution if complicity is found. Another incorrect approach, such as attempting to bribe an invigilator, represents a severe ethical and legal breach, corrupting the examination process and demonstrating a complete disregard for established rules and societal norms. A third incorrect approach, like fabricating personal circumstances to request special accommodations without genuine need, constitutes a form of deception that exploits the system designed to support those with legitimate needs, thereby undermining fairness and trust. Professionals facing similar situations should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the ethical dilemma. This involves recognizing the potential conflict between personal gain and professional/ethical obligations. Next, they should consult the relevant regulatory framework and ethical guidelines specific to the situation. In this case, the Rafidain University College entrance exam regulations, evaluating the potential consequences of each course of action, both for themselves and for others, is crucial. Finally, choosing the course of action that upholds integrity, fairness, and adherence to regulations, even if it means forgoing a perceived short-term advantage, is the hallmark of professional decision-making. Question 13. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential breach of examination integrity during the Rafidain University College entrance exam. You observe a candidate discreetly looking at their mobile phone multiple times, despite clear instructions prohibiting electronic devices. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action? Option A. Ignore the behavior, assuming it is not a serious infraction, to avoid disrupting other candidates. Option B. Immediately confiscate the candidate's mobile phone and escort them out of the examination hall. Option C. Discreetly note the candidate's behavior and the specific instances, then report it to the examination supervisor for further investigation according to college policy. Option D. Approach the candidate and verbally warn them about the prohibition of mobile phones, allowing them to continue the exam. The correct answer is C. Discreetly note the candidate's behavior and the specific instances, then report it to the examination supervisor for further investigation according to college policy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the academic integrity principles upheld by Rafidain University College. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead students to seek shortcuts, while the institution has a duty to ensure a fair and equitable assessment process. The challenge lies in identifying and responding to potential academic misconduct without unfairly prejudicing the student, while upholding the college's ethical standards and examination regulations. The correct approach involves a measured and investigative response that prioritizes gathering facts and adhering to established procedures. This approach is right because it aligns with the principles of due process and fairness, ensuring that any accusations of misconduct are substantiated before action is taken. Specifically, it respects the Rafidain University College's examination regulations, which likely mandate a formal process for handling suspected irregularities. This process typically involves discreet observation, documentation of suspicious behavior, and a subsequent review by an appropriate academic committee or disciplinary board. This ensures that decisions are not based on assumptions, but on evidence, thereby protecting the integrity of the examination and the rights of the student. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the student or take punitive action based solely on suspicion. This fails to adhere to the college's procedural requirements for handling academic misconduct, which would likely involve a formal investigation and an opportunity for the student to respond. Such an action would be ethically unsound as it bypasses due process and could lead to an unjust outcome. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed behavior. This would be a failure of professional responsibility and a breach of the college's commitment to maintaining academic integrity. By not addressing potential misconduct, the institution compromises the fairness of the examination for all candidates and undermines its own standards. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes observation, documentation, and adherence to institutional policy. This involves 1. Discreetly observing and noting specific behaviors that raise concerns, without making immediate judgments. 2. Documenting these observations objectively, including the time, nature of the behavior, and any potential evidence. 3. Consulting the Rafidain University College's official examination regulations and academic integrity policies to understand the prescribed procedures for handling suspected irregularities. 4. Reporting the observations through the designated channels, allowing the appropriate authorities to initiate a formal investigation. This systematic approach ensures that actions are taken based on evidence and in accordance with established rules, safeguarding both academic integrity and fairness. Question 14. Comparative studies suggest that academic integrity is a cornerstone of higher education. During the Rafidain University College entrance examination, you observe a fellow candidate discreetly using unauthorized notes hidden within their exam booklet. According to the established examination regulations of Rafidain University College, what is the most ethically and procedurally sound course of action? Option A. Discreetly inform the invigilator or the designated examination committee member about the observed incident. Option B. Ignore the incident to avoid confrontation and potential disruption to the examination environment. Option C. Discuss the observation with other students to gauge their opinions before deciding on a course of action. Option D. Confront the student directly and demand they cease their actions. The correct answer is A. Discreetly inform the invigilator or the designated examination committee member about the observed incident. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation of academic integrity and the responsibility to uphold the standards of Rafidain University College. The core conflict lies between a student's desire to succeed and the integrity of the admission process. The university entrance exam is designed to assess a candidate's genuine knowledge and aptitude, and any deviation from this principle undermines the fairness and credibility of the entire system. The pressure to perform well on such a critical exam can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts, making it imperative for those involved in the process to act with utmost integrity. The correct approach involves strictly adhering to the examination regulations and reporting any observed irregularities. This upholds the principle of fairness for all candidates and ensures that admission is based on merit. Specifically, reporting the observed cheating incident to the invigilator or examination committee, as per the established procedures of Rafidain University College, is the mandated and ethically sound course of action. This aligns with the university's commitment to academic honesty and the integrity of its selection process, as implicitly or explicitly outlined in its examination guidelines. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed cheating. This inaction tacitly condones the unethical behavior and compromises the fairness of the examination for all other students who have prepared honestly. It violates the professional duty to uphold academic standards and can lead to the admission of unqualified candidates, thereby diminishing the reputation of the university. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the student directly and attempt to resolve the issue without involving the proper authorities. Seemingly proactive, this bypasses the established disciplinary procedures of Rafidain University College. It could lead to an escalation of the situation, potential personal risk, and importantly, it fails to ensure that the university's official protocols for handling academic misconduct are followed, thus not guaranteeing a just and consistent outcome. A further incorrect approach would be to report the incident to a fellow student or a peer outside the examination committee. This disseminates sensitive information inappropriately and does not guarantee that the issue will be addressed through the official channels. It undermines the confidentiality expected during an examination and places the responsibility of reporting on someone who may not have the authority or knowledge to act effectively within the university's framework. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's examination regulations and ethical codes. When faced with an ethical dilemma, a professional should 1. Identify the ethical issue and the relevant stakeholders. 2. Consult the applicable rules, regulations, and ethical guidelines of Rafidain University College. 3. Determine the most appropriate course of action that upholds integrity and fairness. 4. Execute the chosen action through the designated channels, ensuring proper documentation and communication. 5. Reflect on the outcome and learn from the experience to reinforce ethical conduct in future situations. Question 15. The audit findings indicate a discrepancy in the recording of a recent departmental expense, suggesting a potential misclassification that could impact the accuracy of the college's financial statements. As a staff member who discovered this, what is the most appropriate course of action according to Rafidain University College's internal financial regulations and ethical conduct guidelines? Option A. Ignore the discrepancy, assuming it is a minor error that will not significantly affect the overall financial picture. Option B. Document the discrepancy thoroughly and report it through the established internal reporting channels to your direct supervisor or the internal audit department for review and correction. Option C. Discuss the discrepancy informally with a colleague to gauge their opinion before deciding on any action. Option D. Immediately correct the misclassification by making an adjusting entry without informing anyone to avoid further scrutiny. The correct answer is D. Immediately correct the misclassification by making an adjusting entry without informing anyone to avoid further scrutiny. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it involves a conflict between the immediate desire to rectify a discovered error and the established procedures for reporting and addressing such issues. The pressure to quickly correct a mistake, especially one that might reflect poorly on the department, can tempt individuals to bypass proper channels. However, adherence to established protocols is crucial for maintaining the integrity of financial reporting and ensuring accountability. The correct approach involves meticulously documenting the error and reporting it through the designated internal channels, typically to a supervisor or the internal audit department, as per Rafidain University College's internal financial regulations and ethical guidelines for its staff. This ensures that the error is formally acknowledged, investigated, and corrected in a controlled manner, preventing potential recurrence and maintaining transparency. This aligns with the ethical principle of honesty and integrity and the regulatory requirement for accurate financial record-keeping. An incorrect approach of directly correcting the error without informing superiors or the audit department fails to uphold the principle of transparency and accountability. It bypasses the established control mechanisms designed to prevent and detect errors, potentially masking the issue and hindering a thorough understanding of its root cause. This could lead to further inaccuracies or a false sense of compliance. Another incorrect approach of ignoring the error altogether is a severe ethical and regulatory failure. It demonstrates a lack of integrity and a disregard for the accuracy of financial information, which can have serious consequences for the institution's reputation and financial standing. This directly violates the duty of care and professional responsibility expected of all staff. A further incorrect approach of attempting to correct the error by making an offsetting entry without proper authorization or documentation is also unacceptable. This can create a misleading financial picture and may be construed as an attempt to conceal the original error, undermining the audit process and violating principles of sound financial management. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and ethical codes. When an error is identified, the first step should be to pause and assess the situation against known regulations and internal procedures. The next step is to consult relevant documentation and, if necessary, seek guidance from a supervisor or the designated compliance officer. Transparency and thorough documentation are paramount throughout the process. Question 16. Regulatory review indicates that during the Rafidain University College entrance exam, an invigilator observes a candidate discreetly using a mobile phone to access information. The invigilator is aware that the exam regulations strictly prohibit the use of electronic devices. What is the most appropriate course of action for the invigilator? Option A. Discreetly signal the candidate to put the phone away and continue monitoring the exam without further intervention. Option B. Ignore the incident to avoid disrupting the examination environment and potentially causing distress to the candidate. Option C. Immediately confiscate the mobile phone and report the incident to the examination board for further investigation and disciplinary action. Option D. Approach the candidate privately after the exam and advise them against such behavior in the future. The correct answer is C. Immediately confiscate the mobile phone and report the incident to the examination board for further investigation and disciplinary action. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the ethical obligation to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead individuals to consider shortcuts, making it crucial for exam administrators and invigilators to act with integrity and fairness. The core ethical dilemma lies in balancing the need to ensure a fair assessment for all candidates with the potential consequences for an individual student. The correct approach involves a direct and transparent reporting of the observed misconduct to the appropriate examination authorities. This aligns with the Rafidain University College entrance exams regulatory framework, which implicitly mandates adherence to rules of conduct and academic honesty. By reporting the incident, the invigilator upholds the integrity of the examination process, ensuring that all candidates are evaluated on their own merit. This action is ethically sound as it prioritizes fairness and prevents an unfair advantage for the student in question, thereby safeguarding the credibility of the entrance exam and the institution. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed cheating. This failure directly contravenes the spirit and likely explicit rules of the Rafidain University College entrance exam regarding academic integrity. By overlooking the misconduct, the invigilator becomes complicit in undermining the fairness of the examination, potentially allowing an unqualified candidate to gain admission. This also sets a dangerous precedent, suggesting that rules can be disregarded. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the student directly and issue a warning without reporting. While seemingly a less severe action, this still fails to address the systemic issue of cheating. The Rafidain University College entrance exams regulations likely require formal reporting of all breaches of conduct. A private warning does not ensure accountability or prevent future occurrences, and it bypasses the established procedures for handling academic dishonesty, thus compromising the integrity of the exam process. A third incorrect approach would be to attempt to subtly assist the student to avoid detection. This is a severe ethical and regulatory breach. It directly violates the invigilator's duty to remain impartial and to ensure a fair examination environment. Such an action would be a gross dereliction of professional responsibility and would completely invalidate the examination results for that student and potentially others if discovered. A professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the examination's rules and regulations. When an ethical dilemma arises, the professional should first identify the core issue and the conflicting obligations. The next step is to consult the relevant guidelines and procedures. In this case, the established procedure for reporting academic misconduct is paramount. The professional should then act decisively and impartially, prioritizing the integrity of the examination and the fairness to all participants, even if it means taking an action that might be perceived as punitive towards an individual. Question 17. Consider a scenario where, during the Rafidain University College entrance exam, you observe another candidate discreetly looking at notes hidden in their sleeve. You are aware that the exam regulations strictly prohibit any form of cheating and emphasize the importance of academic integrity for all applicants. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action? Option A. Ignore the situation to avoid potential conflict or repercussions. Option B. Offer to help the candidate by distracting the invigilator while they consult their notes. Option C. Discreetly report the observed behavior to an invigilator or examination official. Option D. Agree to keep the candidate's actions a secret if they ask you to. The correct answer is C. Discreetly report the observed behavior to an invigilator or examination official. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the integrity of the examination process. The pressure to perform well on a university entrance exam can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. The core of the challenge lies in upholding academic honesty and fairness, while navigating a situation where a peer is contemplating a breach of these principles. Careful judgment is required to respond ethically and effectively, without compromising one's own integrity or unfairly disadvantaging others. The correct approach involves prioritizing academic integrity and adhering to the Rafidain University College entrance exam regulations. This means refraining from any action that could facilitate cheating, and instead, reporting the observed behavior through the appropriate channels. This approach is ethically sound because it upholds the principles of fairness and equal opportunity for all candidates, which are fundamental to any educational institution's admission process. Specifically, Rafidain University College's entrance exam guidelines, which are designed to ensure a merit-based selection, would implicitly or explicitly prohibit any form of academic dishonesty and mandate reporting mechanisms for such occurrences. By reporting, the student acts as a responsible member of the academic community, contributing to the maintenance of a trustworthy examination environment. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the situation. This failure stems from a passive acceptance of potential academic misconduct, which indirectly undermines the integrity of the exam. It violates the ethical obligation to contribute to a fair testing environment, and could be seen as a dereliction of duty if the university's guidelines imply a responsibility to report observed irregularities. Another incorrect approach would be to directly confront the student and offer assistance in cheating. This is a severe ethical and regulatory violation. It actively participates in academic dishonesty, directly contravening the spirit and letter of the Rafidain University College entrance exam regulations. Such an action not only compromises the integrity of the exam, but also exposes the individual to disciplinary action, including potential disqualification from the exam and future academic pursuits. It also creates a situation of complicity, making the person who offered assistance equally culpable for the cheating. A third incorrect approach would be to agree to keep the cheating a secret. This is also a violation of academic integrity. While it might seem like an act of loyalty to a peer, it prioritizes personal relationships over ethical obligations to the institution and other candidates. This silence allows unfair advantage to persist, eroding the credibility of the examination process, and the university itself fails to uphold the principles of honesty and fairness that are paramount in academic settings. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant regulations and ethical codes. First, identify the potential ethical conflict and the relevant rules. Second, assess the severity of the potential misconduct and its impact on others. Third, consider the available courses of action and their potential consequences. Fourth, choose the action that best upholds ethical principles and regulatory compliance, prioritizing the integrity of the process and fairness to all. In this case, reporting the observed behavior through the designated channels is the most responsible and ethical course of action. Question 18. Market research demonstrates that prospective students are highly influenced by perceived job market success rates when choosing a university program. Rafidain University College's marketing department is developing promotional materials for an upcoming entrance exam. The research also indicates that while the college's graduates are generally successful, a significant portion require further specialized training or internships to secure their desired positions in a competitive job market. The marketing team is considering emphasizing the guaranteed success of graduates to attract more applicants. What is the most ethically responsible approach for Rafidain University College's marketing department to take? Option A. Highlight the positive career outcomes and successful alumni stories, while also transparently mentioning the importance of continuous learning and the availability of resources for internships and further development. Option B. Focus exclusively on the high employment rates reported by a small, select group of top-performing alumni to create a strong impression of immediate job market readiness. Option C. Emphasize the guaranteed success of all graduates, implying that the program alone ensures immediate and high-paying employment without further effort. Option D. Downplay any information about the competitive job market and the need for additional training, focusing solely on the program's curriculum and faculty credentials. Correct answer is A. Highlight the positive career outcomes and successful alumni stories, while also transparently mentioning the importance of continuous learning and the availability of resources for internships and further development. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial interests of the college with the ethical obligation to provide accurate and unbiased information to prospective students. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create a temptation to misrepresent program strengths or downplay potential challenges, which would be a breach of professional integrity and potentially violate ethical guidelines for educational institutions. Careful judgment is required to ensure that marketing efforts are truthful and do not mislead applicants. The correct approach involves prioritizing transparency and accuracy in all communications with prospective students. This means presenting a balanced view of the program, including its strengths and any limitations or areas for improvement, based on genuine market research and internal assessments. This approach aligns with the ethical principles of honesty and fairness, ensuring that students can make informed decisions based on reliable information. It also upholds the reputation of Rafidain University College by fostering trust with its applicant pool. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on highlighting positive aspects without acknowledging any potential drawbacks would be ethically unsound. This misrepresents the reality of the program and could lead to student dissatisfaction and a failure to meet expectations, damaging the college's credibility. Another incorrect approach that involves exaggerating the job prospects or earning potential associated with the program, without substantiation from reliable data, constitutes misleading advertising and violates principles of truthfulness. Furthermore, an approach that deliberately omits information about the competitive nature of the job market or the specific skills required for success in the field would be a failure to provide a complete and honest picture, thereby misleading prospective students. Professionals in educational admissions and marketing should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the core ethical obligations, such as honesty, fairness, and the duty of care to prospective students. They should then gather all relevant and verifiable information, including both positive and negative aspects of the program and its outcomes. This information should be critically evaluated against ethical standards and institutional policies. Finally, decisions on how to communicate this information should be made with the primary goal of enabling prospective students to make well-informed choices, even if it means potentially lower enrollment numbers in the short term. Question 19. The investigation demonstrates that a student has approached their instructor, expressing strong dissatisfaction with a grade received on a recent exam, claiming the grading was unfair, and that the instructor has a personal bias against them. The instructor feels the grading was accurate based on the established rubric, but is concerned about the student's emotional distress and the accusation of bias. The instructor is considering how to respond to this situation in a manner that is both ethically sound and compliant with Rafidain University College's academic regulations. Option A. Conduct a thorough, objective review of the student's exam paper against the established grading rubric and provide a detailed explanation of the assessment outcomes, addressing the student's specific concerns without altering the grade unless objective errors are identified. Option B, immediately agree to regrade the entire exam and adjust the score to a more satisfactory level for the student to alleviate their distress and avoid further conflict. Option C, dismiss the student's concerns outright, stating that the grade is final and that the accusation of bias is unfounded, without offering any further explanation or review. Option D, seek out a colleague to unofficially discuss the student's exam and collaboratively decide on a grade adjustment that would satisfy the student, regardless of the original assessment. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough, objective review of the student's exam paper against the established grading rubric and provide a detailed explanation of the assessment outcomes, addressing the student's specific concerns without altering the grade unless objective errors are identified. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and responding to a perceived personal bias. The pressure to address a student's concern, which may stem from a subjective interpretation of fairness, must be balanced against the objective application of established academic policies and ethical conduct expected of educators. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any action taken is both fair to the student and upholds the standards of Rafidain University College. The correct approach involves a thorough, objective review of the student's performance and the grading criteria, without succumbing to personal feelings or external pressures. This approach is right because it adheres to the principles of fairness, transparency, and due process, which are fundamental to academic ethics and institutional regulations. By focusing on the established grading rubric and the student's actual work, the instructor demonstrates a commitment to objective assessment and avoids any appearance of favoritism or bias. This aligns with the ethical obligation to treat all students equitably and to maintain the credibility of the assessment process. An incorrect approach that involves immediately agreeing to regrade the entire exam based solely on the student's assertion of unfairness, without any preliminary objective review, fails to uphold academic standards. This bypasses the established procedures for grade disputes and could set a precedent for arbitrary grade adjustments, undermining the integrity of the grading system. It also risks creating an impression of bias if the regrade is perceived as a concession rather than a result of objective reevaluation. Another incorrect approach, which is to dismiss the student's concerns outright without any form of review or explanation, is ethically problematic. While the instructor may believe the original grading was fair, a complete dismissal can be perceived as unapproachable and lacking in empathy, potentially damaging the student-instructor relationship and failing to address potential misunderstandings about the grading criteria. This approach neglects the ethical duty to communicate effectively with students about their academic performance. A third incorrect approach, which is to involve a colleague to arbitrarily change the grade to appease the student, is a severe ethical and regulatory failure. This constitutes academic dishonesty and collusion, directly violating the principles of honest assessment and institutional integrity. It undermines the authority of the instructor and the established grading policies, and could lead to disciplinary action. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Acknowledge the student's concern respectfully. 2. Clearly communicate the established grading policy and the criteria used for assessment. 3. Conduct an objective review of the student's work against the established criteria. This may involve re-examining the original grading, but not necessarily regrading the entire exam unless specific errors are identified. 4. If errors are found, correct them according to policy and communicate the revised grade and the reasons for the change. 5. If no errors are found, provide a clear, detailed explanation to the student, referencing the grading rubric and specific examples from their work. 6. If the student remains dissatisfied, follow the university's formal grade appeal process. This process ensures fairness, transparency, and adherence to academic regulations. Question 20. The analysis reveals that a student approaches you, expressing significant anxiety about an upcoming assignment and stating they are completely lost and fear failing the course. They hint that they might be tempted to find a way to get the answers if they cannot understand the material soon. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action to take? Option A. Dismiss the student's concerns and tell them to figure it out on their own, as it is their responsibility to learn the material. Option B. Provide the student with the answers to the assignment to alleviate their anxiety and ensure they pass the course. Option C. Advise the student to find someone else, perhaps a friend or a paid service, who can complete the assignment for them. Option D. Guide the student towards university-provided academic support services, such as tutoring or study skills workshops, and offer to clarify specific concepts or assignment requirements without providing direct answers. The correct answer is D. Guide the student towards university-provided academic support services, such as tutoring or study skills workshops, and offer to clarify specific concepts or assignment requirements without providing direct answers. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate needs of a student with the established academic integrity policies of Rafidain University College. The pressure to assist a struggling student can be significant, but compromising ethical standards or university regulations can have severe consequences for both the student and the faculty member. Careful judgment is required to uphold academic honesty while still offering appropriate support. The correct approach involves recognizing the student's distress and offering legitimate academic assistance within the bounds of university policy. This means guiding the student towards resources like tutoring services, study groups, or academic advising, and clarifying the expectations for the assignment without providing direct answers or completing the work for them. This aligns with the ethical principles of fairness, honesty, and professional responsibility expected of educators, and implicitly with the regulatory framework of Rafidain University College, which would mandate upholding academic integrity. An incorrect approach of providing the student with direct answers to the assignment fails to uphold academic integrity. This action constitutes academic dishonesty, undermining the learning process and devaluing the assessment. It violates the implicit regulatory expectation that all students will complete their work independently and honestly. Another incorrect approach of ignoring the student's request and offering no support, while seemingly avoiding direct compromise, is also professionally deficient. While it avoids direct violation of academic integrity rules, it fails to fulfill the educator's duty of care and support towards students, potentially leading to undue student failure and a negative learning environment. This neglects the broader ethical responsibility to foster student development. A further incorrect approach of suggesting the student seek external help from someone who can complete the assignment for them is a direct endorsement of academic dishonesty and a severe ethical and regulatory breach. This actively facilitates cheating and undermines the entire purpose of the educational assessment. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Identifying the core ethical and regulatory conflict. 2. Recalling and applying relevant university policies on academic integrity and student support. 3. Prioritizing honesty and fairness in academic assessments. 4. Exploring and offering legitimate avenues of support that do not compromise academic standards. 5. Communicating clearly and empathetically with the student about expectations and available resources.